hurting your chance of succeeding in a 5% success game. Don't want to take the chance at all.
So in fact, Ganesh, it is actually insulting to compare an accounts payable clerk to an HR professional to the accounting clerk. Because the accounting clerk is actually managing the cash flow of the company. And to me, for a startup, cash flow is much more important than some HR head telling me who to hire. Right? So I would apologize to the accounting clerk for comparing him to the HR professional.
No, that's very important. I think the key is even for fundraising, I have used investment bankers. It doesn't mean I'm outsourcing. Why do I use investment bankers to be for fundraising? Why don't I do myself? Because again, like HR, it's a specialist function. While as the CEO, I would be involved, I will be leading the front, I would be doing the presentations, just like Ravi Gururaj did presentation with various people. I have raised money from top venture capitalists, including Mr. Ratan Tata, so has he. We are all, he's not going to listen to HR head, or he's not going to listen to the investment banker. I go there. But the preparation, but the background work, but the PPTs, the competition scenario, all the background research. If I do that, who is going to run the company?
Ganesh, you are so right. Let me now move on to Esther.
I think when we talked about startups, and not everybody has the privilege to probably have 19 startups on their back. So there's a lot of wisdom that of course comes from this side. And I have been an HR professional all my career. Today, my purpose is to actually raise the bar for HR. So I'm very, very passionate about the role of HR. But staying with the topic, which is is an HR head really needed for a startup? I'm going to wear my hat of a startup entrepreneur. And when I look at, you said 5% chances of survival. For a company to be successful, you need three things. One is an idea that the time has come. Your idea has to be right and it should be timely. The second is a team that is able to execute that idea with the same level of passion. And the third is, of course, having the capital to be able to execute that. So the reason why I believe startups, and probably not entrepreneurs which are repeating entrepreneurs which have been successful, I think there's a lot of wisdom there. But if you're a startup for the first time, there is so many things that you're still figuring it out. So I think the chances for you to actually hire a person in HR who understands the vision, because as a startup founder, you really have no clue about what you're doing. You're figuring it out as you go along. So figure out that you're going to actually hire a person who's going to be supporting you on that vision to take such an important portfolio when you yourself as a founder are still in the journey to figure things out. So I think that's my first point. The second point to me as a founder of a startup, business is people and people are business. So I don't think I can actually disassociate that. Most of my time...
So people matters.
People matters,
Thank you.
absolutely. So most of my time goes into not only hiring, and we've covered, but also about mentoring, motivating, sharpening the vision goes through that dialogue, which I don't think I'll have the opportunity if I actually were to have an HR colleague to support me on that. I think there is a huge learning that I gather because I actually wear that hat of HR head inside the company. The third piece, which I think is also very critical, and I've experienced that in People Matters, is because we don't have a HR head, everybody in the company is part of the solution and not part of the problem. Nobody looks at anybody saying, our performance appraisal does not work, or why should we not have an offsite, or where is our coffee and tea? Everybody takes charge of problems. And we work in a very cross-functional way, so we have an awesome place to work, cross-functional team that takes care of whatever.
So everybody does everything, and they're all very confused about it.
We have a Friday get-together, which is organized by us. We have a Creep for Good sessions, which happens twice every month, where we actually pick up all the problems and we find solutions for it. Now, I don't think we could do that if we had a HR head. Of course, I'm talking about a startup. I'm not talking about serial entrepreneurs. Maybe that's a separate story. And I learned that when I'm successful and I also have 19 companies at my back, I'll be very happy to be on the other side. But today, startups do not need an HR head. I heard the previous startups talking about my entrepreneurs, my CEOs are very busy with product. They want HR to take care of people and motivation. I am alarmed to hear that. Where is that company going to go? When you're saying, you know, I take care of product and market, people stuff, you know, HR, you figure that out. I'm appalled, not alarmed, I'm appalled. I think that's a danger, and I think that's a real, until you figure it out what your business is all about and you're clear about the mandate, when you're hiring an HR professional, what is his or her mandate? If you're not clear, please, you know, you have to keep it for yourself. I'm done.
Well said. I was just going to be looking at my stopwatch. So, thank you so much. Yeah, you look at this. Huh? But very well said. I mean, I was almost fearful that at some point in time you'll say you don't need HR heads at all. I like the way you caveated that by saying for startups. Okay. Anybody wants to rebut?
No, I'd say, I mean, startups more than large organization industries need the HR head precisely because so many things are unknown, and at a time when the founder or CEO is really out there trying to struggle to get all the questions answered, okay, HR is too important a function and has enough complexity not to be done as a side hobby or a side thing, incidental thing by somebody who has got various other things to do, and on whom the investors, the employees, the company, everybody, including their families, are dependent.
You got that, guys?
Just want to take 30 seconds to add to this. So I think the caliber of the HR head you need really depends on the stage of the startup. At a very early stage, I don't know whether you really need an HR head. You might need a fairly junior HR person
You're
who
already
works.
conceding, man.
Sorry?
You're already conceding.
Yeah. So I think once a startup gets to a stage where it's got a Series A or Series B funding, at that point of time, I think there is no doubt that you need an HR head. And we're talking of young companies. We're not talking of early stage startups. So I don't think we're really talking of early stage startups. The topic clearly says young companies. And I would say Series A is a young company still.
Yeah, it's not when you have four people,
Exactly.
you have 4 people, you have a HR head
That's
for
not
4
the
people
point.
and
Yeah.
5 people. We're not talking
Can
about.
I just add to that?
Of course you can.
I think it's not really so much about Series A and Series B from where I see it. I think it's a lot more about the clarity of the vision. What kind of HR leader does this organization looks for, basis on, you know, what's the future, whether we need a transfer, what industry do we operate? So I think it's
Just put the
not so much
mic to
about,
your-
yeah,
yeah.
it's not so much about Series A, Series B, it's more about the clarity of the founder in terms of what kind of organization I'm building, and hence what kind of functional
So what you're saying is
expertise I'm building.
the founder needs to then translate all his vision to somebody else, and you're hoping that will.
Yeah, but he or she needs to be clear first, right? And I think most of the times startups, we are not clear, we are pivoting, we're trying to figure it out. Now get an HR person to add into the complexity. Not only he or she will, you're setting that person for
I'm
failure.
sure you don't have your funding agency sitting in this room listening to you.
You're
as-
setting the person for failure and you're setting the organization for failure.
Absolutely. I think there's a very important point out there which I would like to reiterate. As a startup myself, I can say, you start with an idea, but the idea evolves over a period of time. And not that you change the area in which you're working. If you're working in the HR tech space, you're in the HR tech space, but your idea evolves. Most of the time that a founder spends is to align the team behind the idea. Also, find the fact that the founder is going through his own challenges, wherein he's struggling with clarity, at the same time trying to provide clarity to the other person, and trying very hard through that conversation not to come across as a jerk. Because the other guy could be perceiving and judging him, saying, hey, he told me something yesterday, why is he telling me something different today? At the same time, you've got to win the confidence of the person. By delegating that part of the conversation, it's just not possible. And that it's not a question of whether you have 50 people, 100 people, a Series A funding or a Series B funding. It's a question of how your idea is evolved, a stage of maturity where you say, okay, here I have arrived and this is the positioning I'm going to take in the market, and now I'm going to scale this to 10x. Then there's a different conversation altogether.
Then you need an HR head who will do all this blood bank and all
Maybe,
that
may
stuff,
not
right?
be, I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that, so even startup, even today, Flipkart claims they're a startup with 20,000 people. I mean, what's the definition of a startup then? If 5 people is not a startup, then what is 20,000 people a startup? It isn't. Amazon says it's a startup. How can Amazon be a startup? So the question is, The definition of a startup would be when you are clear where you are in the market. If you know that,
I think the clarity is all around young companies and startup. And this whole conversation is about young companies. So to hear the person speak up against the motion, which means young companies need an HR head, let me now turn this over to Ravi Gururaj to speak.
Yeah, so I think, a few things. One is there's some ambiguity here on the definition of startup. And so let me clarify that for our colleagues here. One is a startup is a venture where there's still uncertainty, there's still rapid growth, there's still potentially not a clear path to profitability or to revenue, in terms of a scaled out revenue. Just hear me out. I think there's still, a startup venture tends to have some amount of malleability to its business model. It tends to have rapid growth in the team, the kinds of disciplines you have on the team. It might be growing geographically. So, these are the things that define a startup. You can reach steady state very quickly if your ambition is very narrow or fixed. If your resourcing is satiated, you've tapped into the market you're addressing, right? So it's not a thing about time. It's not necessarily how many head count. It's actually the state of the business and your ambition, your trajectory, right? Where you're aiming for. That's what, in my mind, defines a startup. You mentioned Flipkart. Why is Flipkart still a startup? Because they don't even own 1% of the retail business. Why is Amazon still a startup? Because it's innovating like mad and taking out its competitors in the retail space. It's growing faster than all the other retailers combined in the United States. It's still defining what the consumer experience will be for the people it serves in its markets. So it's innovating like mad. And that's why it's still a startup, because it's thinking with agility, it's thinking with speed, it's acting with urgency. That's what makes it a startup. What makes it a steady state enterprise is, we all check in at 9 o'clock, we all wait from 4 o'clock, we start packing the bags and we're headed out at 5 when the clock ticks 5, right?
I want to join that company.
So that's a steady state business. So let me just clarify for you what a startup is. It's not about scale, it's not about thing, right? Second, you need to appreciate that the modern startup is structured uniquely nowadays. It is often a virtual company. It is often multidisciplinary. It is often distributed in ways you cannot imagine. It is made up of part-time employees, full-time employees, and hired guns. That requires a complex organizational structure. It is often the case that we will pivot to halfway through that, and we need to reset the team. We need to add new people. We need to get rid of some people possibly. So there's a lot of flux. Anytime you have a lot of flux, you need to manage. And if you keep harping on this, the founder is abdicating. Nobody here on this side is suggesting the founder is abdicating. I can't see a scenario where a founder is abdicating anything. In fact, the founder is setting the direction, is setting the vision, and then delegating. It's not abdication, it's delegation. It's trust in the delegation authority of the CEO or the founder. Because he wants or she wants to leverage, to have greater impact. That's the key thing here. And I think that's getting confused. You all assume a model of an HR person who's your traditional, I think the way you characterize it, Hari, was I think the blood donation camps or whatever. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about an agile HR person who is themselves a sponge for understanding what the business is doing, who is themselves acting agilely, right? Who is very different than what your model of HR may be, I'm expecting somebody who's a super performer, who is acting hand in glove with the CEO or the founder. It's a very different model. So the model of startup, the model of the HR person, you have to appreciate what we're talking about here. Let me end with one fact. Stanford University did a study, and they measured over 8 years companies that hired HR early, startups, and those that didn't. And, without exception almost, guess which companies had better exits, had better market caps at the end of that 8-year period? It was those that actually brought in HR early. Guess what they also found? When HR is brought into a hyper-growth company too late, it actually injects more chaos than it helps. Because it's almost too late. The culture has been set, the path is already the direction has already been given, all the bad habits have already formed, and then HR comes in with a new mindset that is actually very different than maybe even the CEO wants, and then what happens? Actually, most often, they found that the HR person got fired at the end of 1 year. So I think it's best to bring in HR relatively early. It doesn't have to be employee number 1, but it need not be employee number 500 either. I think there's a good balance there somewhere in between. I think as soon as the CEO, the founder feels the burden of HR is too high, and they should definitely look to hire. And I think it's earlier for me than later.
Thank you, Ravi. I love the way you said it. You got that? Yeah, you got that?
So
I also love the way that you very nicely threw in that Stanford stuff. I don't know whether it's all made up.
So they didn't.
It's all true.
It's all true.
I ask everybody to go take a look at that paper tonight.
So Nathan, one last
You want to
point.
rebut that?
So using statistics to make this case is almost like, they say about statistics, like it's like miniskirts. They hide the essentials but give you the ideas. So to correlate success of an exit with HR, it can be correlated with anything. It can be correlated with the weather in the area that the startup is in, right? I can make the same case for any role in the function, in the organization. I can take the role of the CFO and say that organizations that hired CFO first had better exits than the other. Going back to the first point that you raised about the definition of a startup itself. Under the definition that you use, IBM is still a startup. It's only 111 years old, right? Because it's still innovating as hell. Right, it's lost some market share, so it's got plenty of market share to go back and capture. And under the definition that you use, I don't think that even you could define State Bank of India as an organization that is arrived, because they're also innovating as hell. Now, as we said, as this part of the table, we are not debating the process part of this, right? But we're saying, as Esther mentioned, do we need a singular person to be in charge of these processes? Or do these processes, are they owned by the teams themselves, right? So you ask an HR, and this is from my own experience, whether it was at IBM or even my own startup, you ask the HR person to go hire somebody. Okay, give me a job description. Okay, I give a job. If I have to write the job description, what do I need you for? Right? I give the job description. So they go source the resumes, right, from LinkedIn or wherever. Now, why do I can outsource that? It comes in for an interview. It's again me and my 3 or 4 co-founders and my teams are interviewing them. Why do I need you for? Right? So if HR is nothing but a clerical role, why do I need it? I would rather go hire one more salesperson, because at the stage of the company that I am in, bringing in revenue is more important to me than some process clerk who is managing the recruitment process.
I love the way that he relegated this entire job of HR. And I love the passion with which you say that. I hope half of what you said is absolutely true.
No, the process clerk is slightly better than accounting clerk and billing clerk, okay, right? So all you guys have been, between the start of the session to the end of the session, have been slightly upgraded to a slightly better sounding description. I don't know whether actually process clerk or accounting clerk, which one is better. But on a very, I think fundamentally, it doesn't matter whether it is, what is the startup. Because there is lack of clarity, because I want to spend the money in selling, in getting product market fit, in handling all the uncertainties of the market, I need a good, strong, functional expert by my side to support. Now, if that guy is an idiot, none of you are, and he comes and upward delegates to the CEO, you give me the job description, you do it and all that, then you should fire that guy. That's a wrong HR guy. That's not what Colonel Murli is. Hari here joined Big Basket. That's one of my companies. He's the head of HR. The amount of transformational stuff he has brought in. It was a 3-year-old company when he joined, okay, right? Is phenomenal. The mistakes that he helped the founders and me by not committing because of his vast experience in the HR field having done it. He has done it for Taxi for Sure. He has seen it there. He has seen the transformation of Taxi for Sure merger with Ola. He has been through all of that stuff. Remember, none of the founders have been through that kind of experience of handling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of white collar, blue collar people through a transition, through a tumultuous time. All of you would know the Taxi for Sure Ola story. Now that is a fantastic experience and asset to the founder when the founders are trying to handle all the market challenges. Not a process clerk. He's not a process clerk. None of you are process clerks. Process clerks I don't want. I don't want somebody accounting, HR administration, payroll preparation. It's not HR. They may all be part of HR functions. Those all can be outsourced. There are enough companies that do it, startups that do it. We are not talking about process clerk. We are not talking about printing payslips. We are talking about actual people who will contribute and aid and support like Ravi Gururaj.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you. Very well said. All I did through this entire narration was look at Hari. This was like his annual performance management out there in public. He was looking like this, a big, beatific smile that you have, and almost he was saying, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. Very well. And thank you, Ganesh. I love the response and the faith that you have in outstanding professionals. This one is like rapid fire. If there is one statement that you want to make, not a very long-winded one, short one, which says, whatever that you have said in the past so many minutes, this is my counter to that. We will give each one of you a chance, no more than 10 seconds by my watch, starting now.
I think the biggest assumption is you're having people who are going to add value. I think the biggest problem is HR isn't adding value, hence.
HR isn't adding value, that's fine.
I think it goes back to the point of, do startups really can afford the kind of HR leader you're talking about?
You're talking about affordability, very good.
HR needs to move away from its traditional definition of what HR is.
Wow, that is nice. This got a lot of advice in that. Hari, you want to go first?
I would say hire someone who's moved away from the traditional HR stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah. So if you can get HR right first, the talent in a startup is a key ingredient, early ingredient. I think lots of other things, problems get sorted
Will also
out.
follow. Very good.
HR is too complex and too important a function to be done by a part-time person.
Or a process clerk. Very well, very well. You're getting a resounding applause because all of us are feeling a little better right now. So thank you so much. And there was deathly silence when this theme was up there, pulverizing this entire topic out there. Not to say that you guys, what you said was wrong, but just that we were internalizing all of this and made it a little squirmy as well. So I'm going to sum up this whole stuff. The first rule of moderation is to be brief, no matter how long it takes. So, so with this, first of all, I believe that this has been an outstanding debate. I would like all of us to put our hands together for the passion. Thank you. The passion with which each of you speak. And then we got some few turncoats who've started organizations of their own. But I really love the passion with which you talk about bringing the right person on. Somewhere along the way, I also believe that this whole confusion around what is a startup, what's a young company, was the cause for the long debate. And I guess the answer is somewhere in between. Javi, I like what you said about you can be adding value and still stay relevant. You didn't say all of this, but all of what you said pointed only in that direction. Enough has been said about why you need that, and certainly one more time, what value HR can add even in small companies as they grow big. I'm actually liking what I'm saying because it's again this Mullah Nasruddin saying yes here, yes here. The answer is somewhere in between, as I mentioned earlier. It's not the founder abdicating their entire responsibility. The founder still has the vision. He still carries a passion. He knows the kind of person that he needs. Sometimes you don't even have time to write that on a piece of paper. And there's loss in translation as well. So many times if you meet our founders, you will find them to be people who speak a lot and very fast, and the expectation is you get it exactly what I have in my head. It's a lot of ask for HR leaders to be working in organizations which are working at a frenetic pace, because there are 5 different things that a founder has to do. So, in summary, if I were to talk about what are the things that we've got to believe, founding members of startup, they understand beyond all the principles, they are looking at the end in mind, which is, I've got to turn this 5% success rate, and if I can even extend that even by a tad more, what's the best hand that I can get to bear the kind of travails and tribulations that I suffer on an everyday basis? The accent is again on getting the right person. Considerations of cost, absolutely in the corner. What you said is absolutely right, Anand, because I can ill afford somebody depending on what time or what stage I am. And if I can do some of this myself, why not? Last but not the least, I think to a person, everybody around this particular panel, people who've been doing this for a living, heart of heart, they know that what is best for the firm is getting the right person on board. If I can do that or part of that job myself, why not? But that knowledge is very deeply embedded that at some stage I need to bring this on board. Even as I conclude, the first thing that I'm going to do as I step out is to get on to that Stanford research and check that out. You've been an awesome audience. Thank you all. Thank you so much. With this, we'll bring this to a close. Thank you. Oh, you have a question, please. Please.
Thank you all. I couldn't resist my question beyond this point. I find the whole debate is on the wrong topic. Okay, I'm sorry to say that. But actually we need to discuss about what is the value HR should add to the business and what should we actually move out of. And focus on that topic. And actually it should not be person-based. And HR is a people perspective, right? And a HR person is adding the people perspective to the business impact what we want to create. And any organization without a people asset and the motivation doesn't exist. Okay, and we are all talking about not the resources, not the technology, not the other factors of how the business sustains, but as the people factor, because the people is an important factor in your business success. And if, as a HR expert, as a people expert, if you're not giving the value add as a transformational expert for your businesses, yes. So then the question, the challenge, what I find in this debate is, we are actually not...
Did we get the topic right?
Yes. So I feel that existence of a HR person should not be a question at all. It is given, but how we need to actually add value to the business should be the topic of discussion.
Should be the topic.
Yes.
I think Raj and company are all here, and they are taking copious notes. This is a good segue into what can be another remarkable debate that we can have at our next national conference. You are so right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
We won't take any more
debaters.
questions as of now, not for anything.
Questions will be offline.
But there is an award ceremony which everybody is waiting for. Thank you. I'm sorry I had to cut you off.
Thank you very much. May I request the debaters and the moderator to please remain on stage while I request, is Bala here? Bala and Raj to please do the honors. Of course, we have the girl child picture there. So just for the benefit of our debaters, we made a donation to the children there you see on stage, on the panel. Thank you very much for making it this evening. Please don't go away home. We have a very, very short and crisp award ceremony now. Please do stay back. Thanks. Dhananjay ji and team, over to you now.
Thank you, each one of you. Thank you.